Hello everyone and welcome to this Google Digital Garage training session all about building a social media strategy. My name's Kirsty and I'm a trainer for Google's free skills training program, Google Digital Garage. And it's really nice to have you on this afternoon. Now, I'm not here alone. I've also, who you've already probably met in the chat, got another Google Digital Garage trainer and mentor in the chat called Joe. Please do say hello to Joe in the chat. He's going to be there sharing links. He's going to be answering questions and also passing on some questions for myself when we pause for answering some of those. Now, what I would love for you to do right now is head over to that chat if you haven't already. Say hello, introduce yourself. Let us know about your business. Are you here as a sole trader today? Are you here as an aspiring social media marketer? Are you here with your own business? Let us know in the chat, introduce that business. And while you do that, I'm going to run through a little bit of housekeeping. Housekeeping wise, if at any point throughout this webinar you have any trouble hearing or seeing what we're going through, try refreshing the browser in YouTube. Sometimes we get a little bit of a bug in the system. It happens to everyone, and that age-old turn it on and off again sometimes can help us out with those technical difficulties there. If you're wanting to join in with that chat on the right-hand side and you're thinking, I'm not logged in or I don't know how to do that, you will need to make sure you're signed into your YouTube account in order to communicate with us. If you're on a desktop, you should see that to the right-hand side of this video. And if you're on a mobile device, then it should, if you scroll down, just be below the video and you can get involved there. Now, I can't see you, I can't hear you, but we can communicate in that chat. So do keep it coming, say hello. And I'm going to be asking for your participation as we move throughout. Might ask you to share a few emojis and everything as we go through as well. So to add to that as well, if some of you are here and would like to make use of captions, if you hover over the YouTube video, in the bottom of that panel, you should see a little red square that says CC inside it. If you click on that red square, you should be able to see those captions coming through and make use of those if you feel like they are something that would be useful. And I can see on my side they're working, so hopefully they're coming through to YouTube for you. So other than that, thank you very much. I can see a couple of hellos coming through, and I'll read a few out in a second. But other than that, finally, Joe's going to share a link to the Google Digital Garage site, g.co/digital garage. There is or are loads of upcoming sessions that you can get involved with online. So bookmark that link and do check out all the other resources that Google Digital Garage has on offer for you. So in terms of hellos, hi Kinga, marketing assistant at Steel Door Manufacturers. We've also got, hey, I'm a student and found this seminar interesting. We've got Chan, also digital marketing exec at the Academy of Executive Coaching. So many people coming through there. So welcome to everyone from wherever you are signing in from. Let's get started. So we are going to break down this session into 3 clear areas. First of all, we are going to talk about how we can start to use social media to grow our business. And I've got a question for you. So fingers at the ready on those keyboards, because I'd like you to get involved again in the chat. The second part, we're then going to focus on actually building a social media strategy. And we're going to break that down step by step. So if you've got some way of taking notes, make sure you're ready for that middle section, because there's a lot of things that we're going to walk through in part 2. And the third part, I'm going to leave you with a few tips, a few tools that you can go away and start to implement in order to grow your business, grow the project you're working on, whatever it is you're here to really build on today. So before I jump into my question in part 1, the last resource that Joe and I want to share with you here is the available and amazing, actually, free mentoring sessions that are available from Google. So there's a link there on the screen, and Joe's also going to share that for you in the chat, where you can sign up for a one-to-one mentoring session with someone like myself, someone like Joe, and we can talk for an hour on your specific questions for your business. Now, what I will say, this is a service that's available currently for UK businesses, charities, sole traders only. If you are not based in the UK and you're joining us today, then still go over to the website and have a look on that Digital Garage site whether there are any other resources for your location available. So let's jump in, shall we? Part 1, starting to think about how we can use social media to grow our business. And my question for you in the chat, tell me, what would we use social media for? Why would a business want to have a presence on social media? What's the reason for that? Is it or how am I going to use that to grow? Is it to get in front of people? Why would I want to do that? So I'm going to come back to some of those questions, some of those answers in the chat in a second. But when it comes to who are we talking about? Some of the ways that we can start to grow our business, the amount of people that are there. 44 million active social media users here in the UK. That's an incredible amount of people. When you think about all the networking sessions that you could attend in a face-to-face scenario, and you think about how many people you might meet and start to talk about what you do, you're still never going to quite be able to meet she says, 44 million potential people. And I can see a couple of comments coming through there as well. To increase customer base and reach, yeah, absolutely. Let others know their product or service, brand identity, create an online presence and gain attention, absolutely, right? And do all of these things whilst being able to do that to an audience that's open to learning more about what we do in our online presence. And actually, the second stat on this screen is really interesting. Give me an emoji in the chat if this seems a little low for your own habits. So on average, 1 hour and 54 minutes is spent daily on social media on any given advice. If you think you spend more than a couple of hours per day on any or a mix of social platforms on your phone or any other device, give me an emoji in the chat and I'll see those pop up. So Joe, don't feel like you have to share all the emojis. I'll see the emojis pop up in the chat there. Really, really interesting. I definitely would be dropping in a little light bulb or a little emoji there, because I think some days I definitely spend way more than 1 hour and 54 minutes day to day, and I can see, yep, a lot of you sharing some emojis there. So I'm glad I'm not alone. So it's really interesting, right? People are using these channels actively every single day, and you are within those consumer bases. There's a lot of us on there, open to starting to learn about more businesses, what they can offer us, how we can connect with them on a personal level. So when we talk about using social media to grow our business, all of those things that you gave us in the chat are spot on, right? Because we can start to use these platforms as a business to generate sales. Fantastic. We're going to reach new audiences. Even with that stat on the previous slide, that's about 85% of the UK population that are using some form of social media platform. That's an incredible audience that we can get in front of there. We can also start to create opportunities for our business, for ourselves, for our services, whatever it is that you are promoting online, because it gives us a new way, a new opportunity to be able to connect with customers in different ways. We could facilitate competitions. We could create interactive stories. We can create and use polls. So it gives us a different way to be able to communicate with those types of customers. We can also, when we look further and deeper into the paid side of social media, we can also give ourselves the ability to target a very specific set of consumer, which can really help us, again, going back to what you said in the chat, increase our customer base, increase our reach, start to let more people know what we do and why we do it. Which leads into that last point about generating sales. When it comes to building relationships, building networks, social media, it's called social media for a reason. People are looking to actively make those connections. Another way that we can use socials to grow our business is by adding value to our brand. And this traditionally may be in ways of things like chatbots, customer services, being able to respond super quickly when our customers have questions. which allows that first point us to raise those customer service levels. Again, in the chat, tell Joe and I, have you ever had a situation where maybe you have had trouble with a service, or maybe you've got a complaint, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's really positive and you want to tell that business how amazing they are. How many of you have used a social media platform to reach out to a business? And tell us in the chat. It can be really simple. You can use an emoji. You can give us a little example of what you've done, because I'm pretty sure a lot of us here today have definitely done that. And the reason for that is because as people, as consumers, we want that two-way conversation. We want that quick response. We want to be able to know that if we have an issue, or if we are wanting to show our appreciation, those businesses are hearing us. They're understanding and creating that communication thread with us as their consumer. So as a business, it can be a really great way to show a new side of the business, create that community, build that brand community, and essentially that set of super fans, brand advocates that are going to talk about our business in other rooms, even when we're not there advertising what we do. One of the final ways that we can, of course, use social media when it comes to growing our business is to improve that marketing side of things. Now, we've talked about communication, we've talked about creating a community and that two-way conversation, but we can also use these social channels to get noticed in places like a search engine. Again, many of you may have been looking for a particular service, a particular product in the past, used a search engine and found that actually the pages that you've clicked on have been a Facebook business page or a TikTok video that's come up within that search engine. So by having a really engaged presence on particular platforms that suit your audience, which I'll talk about in a second, then we're going to be able to help ourselves and our business get more noticed within search, which in turn is going to allow us to attract more people to our site, start to gain insights, start to understand actually what's working, what's not working, how can we improve what we're posting and how we're communicating. And finally, within that marketing, social platforms also give us a fantastic way of keeping an eye on those competitors. Your competitors are talking publicly. They know they're giving away, whether that's Facebook business posts, TikTok videos, looking at their website in conjunction with what they're doing on their social channels. So you can really start to build up these competitor profiles by looking at what people are doing on those profiles. So when you get started with that social strategy, start asking yourself, when I'm posting on social media, do those posts drive people through to my website? Is that what I want them to do? And if you want them to go somewhere, is that happening? And if you don't know if that's happening, do you know what tool to use to start to figure that out? So you know what to do more of, what to do less of, what needs improving. What about if you've got influential followers? Do you know who your most influential followers are? And can you potentially connect with them? Is there a collaboration opportunity there? What kind of updates should you be posting? And not only what kind of updates, but what's the best time to actually engage with those specific customers that you want to bring into the fold of your business and your organization? Super, super interesting, because that's not just the time of day, but it's also the time of week, the time of year, the time of the month. So really starting to break down how your customers engage with businesses like yours in that space. So before we move to part 2, the strategy, the social media strategy, I do also want to finally highlight attention spans are short. It's really, really interesting to start to understand the best way to think about this. Take your business hat off and think of how you are when you are a customer. When you're scrolling through social media, how long do you give something before you scroll past it? What does something have to capture your attention in order for you to go, oh yeah, that might be for me. That might be something that I want to stop and look at. Yes, there is lots of competition. So starting to think about you and your brand and what you're building online. What's unique about your business, your product, your service? And how can you start to compete in an arena that might be saturated? How can you start to cut through anything that's sort of distracting from what you do as a brand? It's not always free. Really important. It's a misconception that social media is a free way to build your brand and your business. And using that word free, we have that unpaid, that organic, unpaid versus paid social media. So understanding the difference, and just because something is free in regards to paying for it, so it's not a physical ad, it doesn't mean that it's free in terms of other resources that you have available to you. Building really great content, unique content for your specific audience might not cost you anything if you're building it yourself in regards to financial cost, but it will take time, it will take effort, it will need a process that you follow in order to create great content. And also remember, once it's public, it is public. I'm sure all of us can think of, and feel free to share if there's some really memorable ones knocking around, some PR disasters where brands have posted something on social media and immediately tried to go, delete, where's the delete button? But actually, there's always someone that screenshotted it or video screen recorded on their phones. So I'm sure we can all think of brands that have had those instances, and we want to avoid that. So we want to make sure that by implementing our social media strategy, we are posting unique, high quality, on-brand content that is built specifically for your customers and who you want to bring to the table. Now I can see, and usually actually we don't have a lot of questions at this point in this session, and I can see that Joe's telling me there's nothing yet, but do feel free to ask questions in the chat. You've got Joe there, he's ready and waiting, fingers at the ready, and I will be pausing again 2 more times before the end of today's session. So any questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to get round to those before the end of the session. Second part. Now, this is where you need to get your pens at the ready. This is where we can start to think about building a social media strategy that's going to help us be successful when it comes to these social media channels. And I can see Saba is laughing at brand disasters. So you've obviously had a few memorable experiences at seeing brands do that, eh? I'm glad that landed. So breaking down our social strategy, I'm going to go through 5 steps. Feel free to take a picture of this screen. 5 areas to focus on when it comes to creating and building a social media strategy. Audience, step 1. Picking our business goals and also thinking about what that looks like online, which I'll talk through in a second. Social platforms, how do we pick a platform? How do we understand exactly which platform we need to be on for our audience, for our business? Tone of voice, really interesting. So have you got a set of brand guidelines? Have you got a set of kind of rules for your brand that you can follow? And as you build your brand and bring other people into the fold, do you have that tone of voice really, really clarified? And finally, understanding and defining exactly what success looks like for you and your business, so that you can understand when it comes to measuring metrics and looking at the data and being data driven, which is a phrase you'll hear a lot, understanding what that success means at which stage for your business and how you can follow through with that. So I'm going to break down each of these 5 areas, starting with defining our audience. Now, this information can really vary when it comes to what your business does, what type of services you have on offer, how you can start to understand which services for this platform, which services best with our website, etc., etc. Now, there's loads of tools out there that you can start to dive into that data and have a look at your existing audience. Tools like Google Analytics, if you have a website, but also if you've got any existing social media channels, most of those, if not all, do give you access once you hit a certain amount of followers They also give you some demographic insights within each of those social platforms. So if you haven't got a clue and you're just getting started, go and have a look at the existing data that you've got. If you're starting from scratch, start to ask yourself these questions. Who are they? What are they into? Who or what influences your ideal customer? When are they usually online? What social media channels do they use? And actually, I'm sure Joe can grab you a link. There's a great free tool from HubSpot, and it's called the HubSpot Persona Creator, I believe, if you Google it. And I'm sure if any of you go and use a search engine and search, I think it's Create My Persona by HubSpot, then you'll find that tool. It's completely free. You can create up to 3 personas and really just give yourself a starting point if you've never done this before. In regards to some top tips around defining your audience, if you are in the position where you've already got existing customers, speak to real people, understand their needs, understand their interests and what they want from your type of business. Start to identify groups, start to identify segmentations within that audience, so you can understand, okay, how do I do that? And I can see Joe's added that Make My Persona tool to the chat, so save that link because that would be great for you to use after this session. And finally, the other way that you could start to have a look is if you've got, again, existing customers that have used your services or your products, can you start to survey some of those customers, get them to complete a feedback form? You could do that through something like SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, and start to collect that valuable data that's going to be useful for you. Now, I already mentioned some of those insight platforms. So if you are in a position where you've got a website, connect something like Google Analytics, start to look at that demographic information. But if you're not at that point of growth yet, come back to those social channels. They all have their own individual insights that you can start to make use of to build these personas when it comes to understanding exactly who your audience is. So that's part 1 of a social strategy, is understanding why you're there, who are you there for, and building up those demographic pictures. Step 2, when it comes to a social media strategy, define your goal. Why are you there? If you're opening a Facebook business suite, a Facebook business page, a Twitter or an X, a TikTok, an Instagram profile, and you're opening all these profiles, do you understand your reason to open each of those platforms? And if you can't answer the simple question of why are you there, why are you putting resources, whether that's time, finance, investment, why are you investing resources into that platform if you haven't got a clear understanding of why you're there? Now, there's so many different reasons that you could be on a platform. It could be to raise those customer service levels. It could be general brand awareness. It could be to actually generate specific sales of products or services. Maybe you're using it to connect with specific influencers and you want to build some brand rapport with influencers that you want to bring on board. But really start to define exactly why you are on those platforms. Now, there's the 4 Ds of goal setting that you can actually use when it comes to setting these really clear goals. The first D is to discover. So that's the why. Why are you there? Start to think about what the goal is, and then the why is actually how it helps your business. The second D is to then define any barriers that are going to get in the way or that you can foresee getting in the way of your business actually succeeding in that goal on that social channel. The third D, develop. Then you can start to create a list of all the ways or all the things that you need in order to achieve those goals. So we've discovered our goal. We've started to define any barriers. We've then started to develop a list of what we need to achieve that goal. And finally, we can then deliver by using the resources we know we need to mitigate any barriers and achieve that goal on that social platform. So step one of our strategy is discovering our audience, having a clear idea of our consumer. Step two is making sure we have a very clear goal for that specific platform that we're opening on behalf of our business, which brings us to step three. And that is actually thinking about the channels themselves. When you open a social media channel, no matter what it is, have you made a decision? Is that channel going to be business focused to your business to business, or is it consumer focused? So it's more lifestyle focused, day-to-day tips. Like I said earlier, have you got 5 platforms open and only one of them is actually active for you as a business? Strip it back, start with one. Test it. Learn how to use it. Learn how to optimize on that channel. Then come back and add another, like a recipe. You wouldn't dump the whole bag of salt in. You'd put a little bit in at a time, see what works, optimize it, and start to understand how you can continue to grow. And the reason we talk about this as a best practice is because every single channel that you open needs you to walk through these 5 steps individually for every single channel. So for Instagram, you have an audience, you have a goal, you have your channel, and then the rest of the steps you can start to put together. For TikTok, you would do the same thing. For YouTube, you would do the same thing. So different channels need different strategies based on your goal and your audience that you're trying to get in front of. So as a bit of a top level understanding of some of these channels, when we think of channels that are in existence, now we've got Twitter, or X as it's now known. Is Twitter applicable to your business? Is this something that you really want to collaborate with and use some of those interactive features? So you can use things like polls, you can have that header, you can have your tag, your sort of name of your profile, you can pin that message at the top of your channel. Now, depending on some of the differences between some of the memberships on X at the moment, there's going to be a few different options for you when it comes to this as a platform. But come back to that question. Why am I here? Is this the right space for my audience? Is this the right space for what I want to achieve on this platform? The same with Facebook. A Facebook business page can be so useful in regards to how much information can be put onto that channel, onto that page. You can have an about section, you can list videos, you can have long form written content with an image. You have that option to have a call to action button where you can say contact us or buy now and take them direct to your product pages or your website. There's loads of different things that you can do with a Facebook business page. But again, not to repeat myself, but come back to, is this the right platform for what I want to achieve as a business? Instagram, part of that Meta suite. Is this something that would suit what you do as a business, the more visual side, using short form video or imagery to really tell the story of your business in a very visual way? Have you got that consistent brand element over and across those visuals? Have you understood exactly how you're going to showcase what you do in that very visual way? LinkedIn. For those of you here that are operating on a more business to business level, LinkedIn can be a great place for you to build an online presence for your business in this space. It's a really real opportunity for you to be an authoritative voice when it comes to your industry and what you're an expert in. You can really start to not only post about what you know and showcase that knowledge, but you can also start to get involved in conversations on this platform to really showcase actually where you sit and your authority in that industry. Now, on LinkedIn, you can have your personal business profile, and you can also create a business page. Just like on Facebook, you can have your personal account, and then you can have your Facebook business page and manage that separately. So you have got that option to either be the manager, the director, the business owner on a individual profile on LinkedIn, and then you can also create a business page on that platform for yourself as well. Now, of course, we've got TikTok, which I don't have a slide for here, but you've got TikTok in the same way. You know, you can have those insights, you can collect that data, you can make sure that your TikTok account is a creator's account, and you can really start to build that in to your strategy. But of course, we can't forget YouTube. YouTube is a communal social platform. It's also the second biggest search engine in the world next to Google. So it's a really great place for you to be discovered online and start to build that very visual community for your business if it's the right space for what you do. We've, of course, got YouTube Shorts. We've got our long form video. We can also really get involved on that paid side with YouTube ads as well. So there's loads of options with this as a platform in the same way as some of those other social platforms. So to summarize step 3, it's really about thinking, do I need to be on as many platforms as I'm currently on? And actually, what platforms are going to serve the growth of my business in the most relevant way for my audience? And to answer those questions, you come back to steps 1 and 2. Who is your audience and what's your goal? What channels are going to really best serve you in growth, in building sales, in building a rapport with your audience? Which brings us to step 4 of our social media strategy. And now this is a really important step. I often describe this when I'm working with businesses as the physical document that you can have. You can print it out if you need to, and you can draw from it to really understand exactly who your business is. If your business was walking down the street as a human being, talking to its customers, how does it speak? Does it have an accent? What words does it use? What language does it use? Really start to clarify all of those elements and build yourself a set of what we call brand guidelines. Now, if any of you use a tool called Canva, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, then if you go into Canva and in the search bar type in brand guidelines template, actually, there are so many on there. Even just with that one tool alone, there's so many free templates that you can start to use to actually curate these brand guidelines for your own business. And they're really, really useful, especially when you're at a point of growth where you might bring someone new onto your team. And what I find with a lot of business owners is that our brand is here. What we know, what we're putting out there for content, how we're talking, it's such a reflection on who we are as the business owner that we know what we need to do. So when it comes to bringing on this next person, getting them to understand fundamentally who we are can be really difficult. But if you are actively working on building these brand guidelines from the beginning, growth can happen a lot more smoothly, because you can go, right, here's our brand guidelines so far. This is how we use our logo. This is exactly what font we use in what situation. And these are our brand colors. And we only use these brand colors in these scenarios. This is who we are. This is what we care about. This is the personality of our brand. Do's and don'ts, really important. The do's and the don'ts are just as important as each other. So sometimes some brands have certain words or phrases that are related to a competitor. So that would firmly go in our don'ts. We don't use this catchphrase, but we do use this set of words or this color or whatever it is. And these brand guidelines, that last point on this slide, also need to run through to the visual brand of your business, because what's super, super important is that if you are using any of those platforms that have that visual element, which a lot of us are consuming video content at the moment, a lot of us, it's very, very popular. And a lot of us are consuming this visual imagery. As a brand, have you made a concerted effort to really make sure that the style of image has a cohesive understanding? The type of filter that you use has a image. Now, when I say filter, it doesn't have to be heavily edited, but it could just be that you've stylized the images to really feel the same and have that same consistent feel to the visual. So anything that you sort of set out in those brand guidelines, make sure you don't forget the imagery side of it, the visual side of your brand as well. Make a clear decision when it comes to that brand voice. And sometimes certain brands adopt a particular tone that resonates with their customers, and that's okay. You don't have to have one specific tone, but you can make some decisions. Are we friendly? Are we provocative? Are we fun? Are we serious? Are we more formal? Or can we be more casual? And sometimes this might relate to specific platforms. So maybe consistently as a brand, you're fun and your personality is fun. But on LinkedIn, you have a little bit of a more formal edge. But on TikTok, you allow your brand and you allow the people posting that content to be a little bit more casual. So you don't have to have one tone of voice, but it is about starting to clarify exactly who you are, and then clarifying that per platform and having that aligning feel and understanding of who your brand is. Now, a really great campaign that I'd recommend that you all go and have a look at is This Girl Can. Now, this is a screenshot of some of the materials they produced a few years ago for one of the original This Girl Can campaigns, but definitely head over to the website because it's such a good example of how to build a very clear brand. The logo. Look at these images. The logo in each of these 3 examples is clearly in the same place. It's the same size. It's the same color. The text then overlays those images in exactly the same way. The images themselves are all stylized. Okay, they're different. They're in different scenarios, but look, the focus is that person in the image with that blurry background, drawing the focus on that female, that woman, that persona, really using their physical bodies. But then take it another level. Look at the words. Under these gloves is a beautiful manicure. I also know the offside rule. Sweating like a pig, feeling like a fox. There's a very clear personality coming through. That sense of fun, that sense of connection with the type of people this campaign was trying to connect with. That really feeds through all 3 of these examples, and it really feeds through their whole website, the videos they've released on YouTube. So definitely go and have a look at that because it's a really good example of how you can build this into your own business. So that's step 4. Understanding your brand, the brand personality, how you can really bring that all into the fold to understand exactly who you are as a business and how you want to communicate with your specific audience. Now, before I pause for any questions or any more questions, because I can see there's a couple that have come through, step 5 of having this very clear social media strategy is then defining success. You've gone through those 4 steps. You understand who your audience is, step 1. You've started to think about exactly what you want to achieve on those platforms. You've picked the channels that you feel are most relevant to your audience and what you want to achieve. And you've started to define exactly who your brand is and how you're going to communicate in order to drive people to wherever it is their next customer step. But step 5 is coming back to those goals in a little bit more detail. Because what often can happen is we get distracted by the wrong numbers. Come back to step 2. What is your goal? A really, really common number that business owners get distracted with is number of followers. Now, you may hear the term vanity metrics when you're kind of diving deeper and reading more about social media marketing, and followers can kind of sometimes fall into that category, into that label. Now, followers are important at the beginning of our journey, definitely, when it comes to growth and it comes to connecting with a real audience, and especially on some platforms. So, for example, on YouTube, it's just been put down from 1,000 to 500 subscribers to your YouTube channel in order for you to then qualify to monetize some of your videos. So on some platforms, we have those levels of followers that we need to hit in order to qualify to be a creator, to qualify for TikTok's Creators Fund, etc., etc. But what I would caution is that those followers still need to be authentic. They still need to be people who are genuinely interested in what you do. And that might take time for you to build that following up. But define that success. Define exactly what that looks like. Is it growth? Are you looking at specific sales to understand I need to make this many sales by this point in the year in order for this to be viable? Very specific. Maybe it's looking at, some of you might be looking at using social channels to build that customer service, to build those brand ambassadors. So maybe you're looking at reviews, star ratings, or engagement for brand awareness in the bottom there. So you're looking for how many people are sharing your content, commenting on your content, or generally engaging with what you do in that space. And this success, what success looks like for you and your business, might change. What you decide this week, what you decide next week might be different next year as you grow and as your business starts to redefine itself. When it comes to any social media platforms, and I have seen a few comments come through when I talked about this in the beginning of the session, it is definitely best practice to start to think about how you would consider paying when it comes to social media advertising. Organic reach can only take you so far. And over the years, we've seen organic reach really start to diminish. I mean, at the moment, if we were looking at something like a Facebook business page, you're unlikely to even organically reach even 1% of your followers, and that's people who follow your page. So really starting to think about how you can start to create a financial budget to have a more blended approach and have that organic content going out, but also starting to consider paying. And that is important if you're looking at reaching a bigger audience. It's important across all platforms. It doesn't matter which social platform you're using. And it's definitely important if your core focus is sales and growth. So that summarizes our 5-step social media strategy plan of action. If you didn't take a picture the first time I showed this, please do take another picture here or a screenshot of the screen. Step 1, who's your audience? Have you defined that audience and understand how to make what you're posting on those channels relatable to them? Do you understand what your business goals are? Have you used those 4 Ds so you can start to work out how to mitigate any barriers and how to deliver on those goals that you're setting for yourself? What platforms are relevant? Do you know exactly which platform you're going to start with and where you're looking to grow that presence? Do you understand your tone of voice? Have you got those brand guidelines in place for your business? And finally, what does success look like for you? Have you started to look at those business goals, look at everything you're putting together, and really create those SMART goals, those more defined understandings of exactly what success looks like within set periods of times to create milestones for yourself? Which brings me to our second pausing for questions. I'm just going to take a drink of water. So I can see a couple of questions, and I know that Joe's answered a couple of them. So let's have a look. Do hashtags work? And does it matter where you place them, in a post or comment? Azam or Abba Azam there. Yeah, I mean, this is a really common question, and it's going to depend on what platform you're using. Now you can see with Threads not using hashtags, you can see less hashtags on Instagram happening at the moment. But really, to answer that question in the broadest way possible, it's going to depend on what platform you're using. So something like Facebook or Threads, probably you're not going to be using hashtags, and it's not going to be that relevant to your profile. People are still using hashtags on Instagram. So again, are they relevant to the posts that you're posting about? Is there a hashtag that's really well used and actually does have a lot of content flowing through it that you can really tap into? And do your research. Have a look at what people are using when it comes to what you're actually posting about for your business. I mean, that's the best answer I can give in terms of hashtags at this point, because it's going to be platform specific. Let's have a look. Which platform is currently the best to showcase my business and promote it to gain more audience? Again, who was that from? Gauri. Hopefully I've said your name right there. Again, this is going to be really similar to the previous question. Look at the 5 steps we've just gone through, and hopefully you've been taking notes and you can actually think, oh, she's already answered this for me. But the platform that you choose to use is going to be based upon what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, and actually who's your audience, because there's no one platform fixes all. It's really going to depend, what is your business, what product or service are you showcasing, and the audience for that product and service, where do they hang out online, which social is the best social for your specific audience. Another one, Patrick. What are the traps when using social media for your company? Things to be on the lookout for. Ooh, interesting, Patrick. Good question. Again, making sure you're on brand, making sure everything you post is informed. So not just, I mean, off the cuff content can be really great for things like stories, but when you're starting to plan ahead and you're thinking, how can I get involved in a conversation in my industry, making sure you're well researched, you're representing your brand and those brand guidelines in the best possible way, and yeah, just really sticking and to your plan of action, whilst walking the fine line of flexibility to be able to be reactive in an ever-changing world depending on your industry. Hopefully that's a good answer for you, Patrick, and thank you so much for your question. Yeah, and I can see that Joe already answered the question, platform for e-commerce and conversions there, so hopefully Shuffle Radio best, and Joe's giving you a good answer for that. Okay, that's all the questions I can see right now, but we have got one more time where I will stop towards the end. So if you do have anything that comes up and you think, oh, I want to ask some more questions, please do pop them in the chat and we will come back round to them if we've got time. So I want to wrap up now. We've got just over 10 minutes left together, starting to think about how we can implement these 5 steps. So we talked through that 5-step plan of action, and I would really encourage all of you to take those 5 steps, look at what you've got existing, and start to fill in those gaps around that social media strategy so you know exactly how you can start to move forward. Then you can come to this, the tools and best practice. The first thing to think about is the content itself. What types of content could you be sharing for your business? Now, we have another great session. So again, that link we popped in the chat at the beginning of the session, if you head over to g.co/digital garage, we have another great session called Writing for Social Media, where we actually talk about this in a lot more detail. We talk about the building of your brand and understanding your audience as well. And it's a really great session to pair with what we've talked about so far today. But as a brief overview, starting to think about, on each platform, is there a set of ideas that you can start to curate content that's going to land with your customer, with your consumer? Do you have things like announcements that you can build in to your consistency on those channels? So maybe you've got new products or you've got new tag on services, new services. So do you have any announcements that you can build as a type of content? What about non-promotional, behind the scenes content? If you, again, are trying to build that connection with your customers in a little bit of a different way using a social platform, how can you start to create content that's not just sales? And again, I always make the joke, if you, and again, okay, let's do this because we have got time. So if you were walking down the high street, you've been shopping all day, you're walking super slow, you've got loads of bags in your hand, and you're thinking, oh, I need to get to my car, I need to get on the train, whatever it is. And you're walking quite slow, and you see someone in the street with a lanyard and a clipboard walking towards you, trying to clock eye contact. What do you do? Tell us in the chat. Do you just keep walking slow, like la la la? Do you stop for a chat? Do you look at the floor? What do you do in that scenario? In real life, when you actually put this into a sort of human to human scenario, and I can see run. Eyes down. Doesn't matter how heavy those bags were 2 minutes ago, right? We are like, bah, let's go. I need to get to my car right now. Yeah, exactly. This is no different. So any of these comments that are going to come through, this is no different on your social media channels. It's a social channel, right? Depending on the channel that you're using, if a brand that you're following, even if you follow them, you really love them, if they are only ever posting, buy this new sale product, sign up for my webinar, do this, sign here, buy now, it makes us do exactly what we would do in person. I can see loads more coming through there. Ignore and walk faster. Exactly. Maybe look on the floor. Yeah, exactly. Too busy. Yeah, the hand, when we put the hand up, like, sorry. And we walk past, right? So this is no different on a social platform. So having a clear strategy around not only posting content that is sales-based is super important. And that non-promotional content, we look at about an 80-20 split. So 80% of that being no sales, being useful, being relevant, talking about industry updates, talking about your knowledge, your credibility in that industry, sharing customer stories, case studies, etc. And 20% of that content that you use becoming, oh, we have a sale. This is our new product. Go to this page and check it out. So working on that 80-20 split so that we don't bombard any followers, any fans with that constant sales talk, or that dreaded feeling we get when someone walks towards us in the street with a lanyard and a clipboard. So non-promotional content can really build the basis of that conversation with your customers. But you might also have non-sales content that is product related or brand related. Maybe you can talk about what you care about, what your brand's doing in relation to other areas of the industry. Maybe you've got a specific product and you actually can share content that's kind of tricks and tips on how to use that product. Responses. If people are taking the time to leave reviews, to engage with posts, to share, even to share something into a story, make sure you're responding. You're saying thank you. You're engaging with those customers as and when you can. Maybe you're looking for job openings. Which platform's going to be most relevant when it comes to those operational pieces of content? And then we have the reoccurring content, the stuff that happens yearly, seasonal content. Maybe if you're within a certain culture, maybe you've got certain cultural yearly content that you can post with and really build upon. But with all of this content, it's important that you are creating experiences that are worth sharing. You're delighting your customers. You're creating that loyal following and encouraging those customers to even talk about your business without you forcing them to when you're not even in the room. Oh yeah, I connected with this really great brand and it was so good. You should definitely check them out on Instagram. You should definitely check out their TikTok. So really starting to build that community in that authentic way. In terms of physically creating that content, now I've talked about Canva already, and I'm sure, again, Joe can share some of these links for you. Use something like Canva. If some of you have other graphic skills, there are, of course, other tools that you can use. And again, if you've been using a different tool, share it in the chat. This is a really great place for you to share some of those tools that you're already using to create content and sort of use it as a bit of network. But create and use great graphics. Step 2, grammar. So important. I'm sure, again, just like the PR disasters comment that I made earlier, some of you can think of times where you have read a social media post or a blog, any scenario from a business, and you've gone, do I trust that when they can't spell the right there, or there? Or the apostrophe is in the wrong place. Or if you're a British company and they're a British company, you're a customer in the UK, you're looking to buy from a company in the UK and they have American spelling. Grammarly, really great tool that you can use. Awesome tool that you can either have as a free extension if you're using a Chrome browser, or again, you can manually use the Grammarly site and copy and paste your content to double check it. And I've just seen a comment there as well about Figma. Yeah, I mean, Figma is a really great tool. I actually personally use Figma as well. But in terms of usability, if you're a beginner, something like Canva can be great. If you're a little bit more technical and you want to get hands-on, Figma can be also a really, really cool tool to use. And finally, if you are looking to manage those platforms, different schedules for those different platforms, it might mean that you need to have a look at some of those third-party tools like Buffer, tools like Hootsuite, in order for you to actually start to pre-schedule some of that content and keep a consistency. What I would say is also there are tools like Meta Business Suite. If you're using Instagram and Facebook, for example, Meta Business Suite can be absolutely perfect for scheduling. You don't necessarily need to go and pay for a third-party tool. So do your research with some of those management tools as well. Which brings us to the end. You've got the knowledge. What are you going to do to action it? And actually, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Is there something in this session, in this hour that we've had together, that you've thought, this is what I'm going to do after this session to really start to redefine my social media strategy? Are you going to set goals within that strategy and understand for what platform? Is it that you need to start to define a tone of voice? Maybe you need to define a clear audience, or start to understand what type of content you're going to post and when. And finally, maybe the thing that you want to work on is actually choosing the right platforms. Maybe you've got too many. Maybe that's something that you want to whittle down and understand what's best. But tell me in the chat, because I can see there's not many questions, but tell me in the chat, what's the one thing you're going to do after this session today, out of that strategy and those steps and the tools that we've talked about, to really, really start to take a next step forward? And I can see a comment there. Meta Business Suite is really hell for me to use. Hope I'm not the only one. No, you're absolutely not the only one. Every time I sign into it, it's changed. But yeah, definitely something that you can start to implement and work your way around. So yeah, I can see a few things coming through there. Definitely taking a look at Canva and Figma, amazing. Use the Make My Persona website. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really great. Start my own art channel, amazing. Needed a clear structure for strategy, so thanks a lot. You're welcome. I'm going to take a look at the different resources shared and refine my goals more clearly. Amazing. Really, really great. So to wrap up then, thank you so much for joining us. In terms of next steps, we're going to share that link again to the Digital Garage site. Please do check up the upcoming schedule. Start to think about if there's any other sessions that you can really utilize. I would recommend that Writing for Social Media session. It's really great. There's also 2 other sessions that would link into some of the things we've mentioned today, and that would be the analytics session. So we talk about all different ways of looking at that data and connecting into Google Analytics if you've got a website. And we also have a Get Started with Digital Advertising session that can be really great as well. Don't forget, if you're based in the UK, we do have that one-to-one service available. So if you get to a point and you think, I actually need to speak just one-on-one about my specific business, how I can start to use a specific thing, you need some pointers, take use of it, make use of it. g.co/UK mentoring, sign up, hopefully we'll see you there. Other than that, the only thing I would love for you to do for me, if you've got a spare minute, please do go to that link there, goo.gov/digital garage feedback, and take some time to really just let us know what was useful, what wasn't so useful, what else you want from these sessions, so that we can make sure that everything is the absolute best that it can be for you in these Google Digital Garage sessions. Other than that, I'm going to say thank you very much because we're out of time. Have a great rest of your week and look forward to seeing you on many more Google Digital Garage training sessions in the future. Goodbye.